So what was some of those fucking things I was thinking? God damn it.
What we're going to banter about, especially now that it's actually recording.
Oh. Yeah. Hi, folks. See that random decide to turn it on. Actually, I know one of the things that I was thinking about earlier, and that was that I wanted to try and see if we could even start capturing the intro audio with just as we start going, just over this, and see how that turned out. That way,
I don't.
One less.
My Google Hangout foo is not the hottest, so if anyone out there listening happens to know if we can play like the intro music over the top of this, like in order to get it going, let us know. If we can't, fuck it. It takes like 5 minutes to edit. I'm not that worried about it to begin with, but if it's something like that where it's a little bit cooler, we'll give it a try. But we are back for another episode, folks. This is actually episode 81.
Holy shit.
Crazy. 81.
81.
Nobody thought that we would be around this long.
Well,
we did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course. Plan on being around for 801. Come on.
Exactly. 8,001.
You might not be, but, you know.
No, I'll probably die. Lots of bacon and beer. But but yeah, tonight, folks, we're just going to be, it's just kind of a general hobby banter about some of the stuff that we have on our hobby tables and projects that we have coming up. For those of you that have been following us on some of the various Facebook groups, either the Guerrilla Miniatures Games 2017 Hobby Resolution, or even our SSP Terrain Love 2017, which we need to see a lot more terrain from you folks on there. So far, I am completely beating all of your asses, and there's no excuse for it. So, we just got a lot on our painting desks. We got a lot of new stuff coming up, potentially new content, and different directions for doing a couple things here and there. Nothing too groundbreaking. That's kind of what we're going to be covering tonight. So, Nick, I guess, where do we want to start this off at? Probably by introducing Robin, who's not actually here, but we could sit here and talk about his ass.
Oh, man. Can we talk bad about him?
Yes, we can. Because he's going to listen to it later anyway. So we're just going to throw all the shit we possibly can out there about him.
He's got a goddamn clown named Giggles.
Yeah. So, folks, we got a third member of the team that's going to be joining us. His name's Robin Horton. Great guy. He loves miniatures games. He kind of loves a lot of the same stuff that we do. He really likes the indie feel of games. He likes a lot of the smaller game companies out there. And he's definitely one of those guys that picks up models just because he wants them, and even finds ways to use them in other games. And, with Nick and I doing a lot for Osprey and doing a lot of gameplay videos and things like that coming up, which we'll be talking about soon, Robin was the perfect fit. So, perfect. Yeah.
Excellent.
He's actually not here with us tonight because apparently his ass is also too cool for us because he's in a band.
Band, people. Band.
Yeah. So, he's got band rehearsal tonight, and so he couldn't join us, but he will be on some future episodes to get him talking a little bit and get him used to doing the whole podcasting thing. You will be seeing him in a couple of videos coming up. For those of you that participated in the Exiles live stream, you would have seen him sitting next to myself the entire time. He was the one that was playing the crazy trapper that was laying down traps and trapping everybody and then hucking grenades across the room like a psychopath. So that was him. And he will actually be in one of our upcoming videos. Nick, I'm not exactly sure. When do we plan on having that Scrappers video out?
Let's see. Probably as soon as I edit it. But now that I've actually got my laptop set up, since I haven't had my laptop set up since we did the Exile show, now that I've got it set up and now that I've got Adobe Premiere, I plan on probably actually after the show tonight trying to do some of the editing on the video and fucking that all up. So probably
Perfect.
As soon as I finish that.
There's a reason why we're calling that segment Warlords Do It Wrong. But with the first game that we're going to be featuring on, I guess if you want to call it our edited, quote unquote, because, we don't really like to edit too much, but on our edited versions of some battle reports is actually going to be Scrappers by Bob Faust and Andrew Davies. We've had both of them on the show before. It's been doing fairly well since it came out through Osprey. We got a chance to play it this last Saturday. The first round was myself versus Robin, and the second round was Nick versus Robin. We had a massive industrial table set up, all terrain on that table. 100% of it outside of the actual board itself was Death Ray Designs, the Black Side X and Black Side Armageddon. So a big shout out to Austin and the team over there for supplying us with that. And yeah, we actually had a blast. There was a lot of stuff that we really, really liked about the game. I was pleasantly surprised about the way that it was going to play out. Obviously, after having Bob on the show and Andrew, his co-author, we understood it, but we, again, without actually sitting down and playing it, always looks great on paper until you play it. And I actually had a lot of fun with it. Nick, what were your kind of impressions with it from the first few rounds?
I liked the game. So the first game I actually ended up sitting out, mostly because I still hadn't made my list, getting everything else together. So I took some time to sit down while you and Robin played, and at first I was hearing things and I was a little, it was throwing me off some, and then I got to play. I really liked a lot of the mechanisms. About the only thing I wasn't a huge fan of was that when you got a piece of scrap or whatever, you had to roll on an event table, and when you rolled on that event table, it also told you what that piece of scrap was, and having to keep track of that for the end game.
Right, that one particular marker is this particular scrap.
Right, and there was a lot of stuff with it, and so it was trying to remember what that was after the fact. That's probably about it, though. Even like the character creation and all that. Though I do think I created my characters a little wrong now that I look on it again. Some of them might have had an extra skill or two, but
you shot Giggles in the face. It's all that.
Well, actually, it was at the back of the head. He was trying to run away.
No, better.
But he was still laughing evilly the whole way. So, and you guys just wait. He's. I don't want to spoil it too much because Robin has that down so beautiful. I was totally looking forward to playing him because I laughed every time he did it while he was playing with Tim, and he, like, the first time he did the whole Giggles thing to me, I went, okay, now Giggles has to die because that's really creepy as fuck.
That's kind of the same thing that happened with me the moment. So to give you folks a bit of a recap for those of you that maybe not have caught the episodes, two of them actually with Bob. Was that Scrappers is a little bit different than most of your typical miniatures games that we have out there. So the big difference of it is that all of your characters are made from scratch, and the game's very WYSIWYG in that way too. So first thing you do is you pick the faction you belong to. So it'll let you know, like, if you're Gamma Lords, you can only play mutants. If you're Sons of Entropy, you can only play mutants and humans. If you're Freelancers, you can play a little bit of everything. If you're Architects, then you have to be humans with like a little bit of a mutant, a little bit of synthetic. Palladium Athena is all robots. They're murder bots. That's all they do. And then let's see here. I know the Purge is 100% human.
Purge. The Sons of Entropy.
Yep, covered them. Ectopians are the other ones. The Ectopians are kind of like your Captain Planet. I don't want to call them eco-terrorists. It's just them and the Palladium Athena do not get along to the point to where they're like, oh, you're robotic, you're dead. So there's a lot of that. So your characters are 100% made from scratch. There's no such thing as a pre-generated character or even like a base set of stats that you start with and you buy weapons. 100% of that character or all of your models are built from scratch. So you start with a veteran, you start with a commander that you have to take, and then 0 to 2 veterans, which are slightly better than your troopers, but worse than your commander, and then the rest of that up to a maximum of 15 models can be troopers. So,
yep. Unless you're Freelancers, then you can take 3 veterans.
Right. Freelancers can take 3 veterans, and they also get a little bit of extra scarce material in the beginning. But yeah, for the most part, there's a couple things that are not typical, and one of them being the fact that, again, you make your models 100% from scratch. I know it sounds like a broken record, but it is a very important aspect of the game. And then the other thing of it was the way that action points work. So we're all used to games where either like I move all my models and then Nick would move all of his, and then that would be kind of how the rounds went, or Nick moves a model, then I move a model, and then Nick moves a model, the you go, I go system. With Scrappers, you actually get a certain amount of orders that you can give out per round. So for example, and it's usually based off of your command trait of your commander. So for example, if your commander has a command trait of 5 and you have 8 models in your unit, you can only activate 5 of those 8 models in that round. So it changes up the way that the game plays. It also changes up the importance of how your commanders are, because if your commander gets shot down and he had the best command stat, that's going to cause some serious issues for the rest of your army for the rest of the game, especially if your next highest command trait is a 4 and you've still got those 8, well, at this point, 7 models of your commanders dead. So, that took, I'd say, a round or two to get used to when Robin and I played the very first game. Nick, I know for you and kind of watching that first game, it probably wasn't too big of a deal for you, but it really quick the way it works.
Yeah, well, so that was one aspect that, while I was watching you guys, because I really was the whole time you guys were playing, making my own warband. So I was picking up bits and pieces of it. And that was one of the ones that I didn't really pick up until I went to play. And then I'm like, wait, what? Because I ended up with five characters in my warband. And when you start a round, you and your opponent roll off, and whoever wins gets what's called the edge, and they get 3 extra activation points, and whoever loses gets a token.
The breaks.
It's a token that lets you interrupt at some point during the round so that you can perform an action before whoever does what, before your opponent does something else. Well, that one bit me, or, it felt like it bit me because basically every time we had to roll for it, I was winning. I was getting 3 extra actions, but I was already having to throw one away because I only had 5 characters on the board. So you can't spend any extra. You can only spend up to how many models you have on the board.
Right.
And it's 1 per model. So, whoever got the break, that's a free action that any person in his unit can take.
An interrupt, by the way. So he could actually use that to interrupt. If you have the breaks token, and any point during your opponent's turn, you can interrupt a model's action to kind of jump in ahead of it.
Yeah, and the first round he forgot to use it. Robin did. The second round he tried to use it. Was it the second one? Something like, no, maybe it was a later one. He tried to use it to save Giggles. It didn't work. It just put Giggles in a better spot. So it really felt like that. I think that, out of everything is probably the one thing that felt like the biggest disadvantage. Now, if I had a larger warband, it wouldn't, because having the edge means that I can activate more guys. But since I had a really specialized and small warband, I didn't have that flexibility, and that was probably the hardest thing in the whole game that to deal with, is not having, or not being able to use all of my actions, even just straight from what my commander had.
Yeah. So, and the other thing to keep in mind too is that models in the game don't have like a wound value. So it's not like your commander has like more, he can take more hits than anybody else. It's actually, the way that it works is that based upon the damage that is done to you, if they do successfully damage you and it exceeds your model's threshold, which is kind of a fixed number. So like for most mutants, it's a 7 because they're a little bit tougher. You're dead. Like, you're removed from the game. Well, you're not dead. You're wounded and removed from the game. And then at the end of the game, you would roll to see if that character is actually dead, or if they're going to sit out the next game due to severe injuries, or if they're, just patch them up, put them back in the game. So even your commander, which you could have, decked to the 9 and all this gear and, have like the highest traits on the planet, if he gets shot that one time and just rolls like garbage on his defense and like just blow, having that small elite unit, yes, you never have to worry about the action points, but at the same time, you can go down really quick.
Yeah, you definitely could. And it was definitely interesting because Robin was playing a very melee-oriented force, and I was playing a very I will keep you as far away and kill you as fast as I can force. And we ended up with about the same amount of scrap tokens because his force, obviously, since it was a very melee-oriented force, his goal was to run and grab as much as possible while, not getting shot. And whereas mine was very sit in place and shoot him. So though I had some guys running around grabbing tokens, he was, just as successful in that endeavor. So, it still played out interesting, because we still both ended up taking losses.
Yes. And that's one of the things I definitely noticed with the game is that, that's the other thing too, is that the moment that the opponent is out of models, the game immediately ends. There is no, I could just shoot down all of his models and spend the next 3 rounds just walking around picking up scrap. No, if the opponent has no models left on the table, the game is done, period. So, you have to really balance yourself between grabbing that scrap and, murder, death, killing your opponent.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was definitely out for murder, death, killing Robin. It was just so much
especially
fun.
Giggles.
Especially Giggles. I will have to edit that almost before this episode goes up, just to have Giggles out there.
Yeah, so just to give you guys a heads up, we were all using models from various ranges. Nick, who exactly were you using again for your model range?
I was using the models from World's End Publishing for actually their game, but their post-apocalyptic game. This is not a test,
right? And I was actually using some Mars Attacks elite units from the Mantic board game Mars Attacks. It's the Tiger Corps, which worked great for Palladium Athena because they're kind of, I don't want to call them the Brotherhood of Steel, but they kind of have that same vibe where it's like they're there to preserve.
Architects.
Yeah, the Architects. Yeah, I'm sorry, did I say Palladium Athena? I meant Architects. So yeah, they kind of have this vibe of like the Brotherhood of Steel that also allows like mutants and synthetics compared to just being like a human faction that's about preserving the tech of the past. So they kind of want to build like a new world order and, kind of why can't we all get along kind of attitude.
Why can't we be friends? Why
exactly.
can't we be friends? Because I want to shoot you.
Yeah, exactly. So, I wouldn't call them good guys. They just have a different viewpoint. So my models were actually this mix of a good mix of models from the Tiger Core box from the Mantic Mars Attacks game. And I use those exclusively and they look great. Robin, on the other hand, decided to go with some really, really awesome models, hence the reason why his stuff was very stylistic. He was actually using the ISC, which are like a murder, death, kill robot faction from the post-apocalyptic game Eden. So his models were massive because most of the ISC models are 40 millimeter bases or bigger, and they usually stand about 2 inches tall. Just monsters.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun playing against them because they were so large.
Yes.
Of course, he tried to hide one of them behind one of your shipping crates, and its head was still sticking up above it.
So it's still a valid target. Yeah.
So it was still like, oh, well, I can still see you. He's like, damn it, I'm crouching. Nope.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. But overall, obviously with filming it took a little bit long. But Nick, how long would you say that Scrappers takes to play if you're not doing the filming like we were?
Well, so I would say that it would probably be. I think my game was about an hour and a half in playtime. And, there was, especially since it was my first game, there was a couple things that I still had to reference or look up. It definitely would probably be about an hour to get the whole game in.
That's a fair assessment. That's kind of what I figured after a while is, again, depending on the scenario too.
Yeah, and that was the other thing, is that I had a rather easy scenario.
Yeah, we got screwed on ours. So the scenario that Robin and I had in our first game was actually called Hot Zone. So the start of turn 3, any model that was still on the board would start taking rad counters, which are basically we start slowly becoming irradiated. And the moment that your irradiation hits your constitution level, you are immediately removed from the game as a wound. So, if you think about it this way, models only usually have like a 6-inch movement. If you're in the middle of a 4x4 board, you've only got a constitution of 3. There's no way you are getting off of the board in any type of a timely manner to not die. So it's one of those games where, especially if you're playing Hot Zone, you have to get in, grab as much as possible, do as much damage as possible, and then run to a table edge as quickly as your model can move.
Yeah. And that's actually, you mentioned something that, I liked with the mechanic, or with the game. I suddenly dropped it. Gosh darn it.
Drink some beer, it'll come to you.
I know, right? I totally had it. Where'd it go? What was it? I don't know. Start talking again. It'll remind me. I'll just interrupt you.
So there's a lot of things that constantly changes the status of the game. So, for example, in the one that Robin and I played, we had Hollow, and that was kind of to what was going on, that we knew that by the end of turn 3, we would all start becoming irradiated. Which, if you're a mutant, at first it doesn't bother you. You can ignore the first radiation point you take. However, mutants are still susceptible to radiation, so that'll start building, and it'll still kill them the same way without having, special upgrades or powers or something in between, which most of the time you don't get right off the bat. So there was a lot of that. And on top of that, too, every time you grabbed a piece of scrap, there could potentially be an event, like the scrap blows up, or it causes like another small pocket of radiation, or which is even worse in that scenario. So, there's a lot of different things that constantly are affecting the game, and you never really feel like you're out of it.
Yeah. Speaking of that, there's the opposed die rolls, or not even opposed. Like when there's an event that happens, I roll for one set of numbers, either as your opponent or as the player themselves. I roll for part of the roll because it's off it's a D10 system, and this event chart has 100 or 99, different events on it.
It's a percentile based. Right. So the way that it works is that the active player, which is the one that's currently activating a model or picked up the scrap or caused the event, they roll a die and they're the 10 spot. And then your opponent would roll the die, they're the 1. So if Nick rolled a 6 and I rolled a 3, our total was 63.
Right. And that got a little bit annoying. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was just something that was kind of nitpicky that somebody else had to roll it. I get the premise behind it of that way the other player doesn't feel detached from the game, because and hell, in the case of the event can be something really serious, that they also helped cause it, but it just, and that was something nitpicky. I still can't remember what I thought was really nice, though. It was a good one. Damn it.
Well.
Oh, this is bothering me so bad.
Brain farts happen even on the air.
Yeah,
totally fine.
Totally.
So yeah, I guess so. Scrappers was the last game that we filmed. We should be having that edited and up on YouTube soon. Our next project is actually going to be another live stream. So that one's not going to be quite as long as Exiles. Exiles obviously was very long because we played a full campaign of it, which if you sit down and play a full campaign of Exiles, it's going to be about 8 hours like our last live stream was. 7 hours because we did have an hour-long break. But the next live stream we're actually going to do is August 26th. It's going to be at Gigabytes Cafe in Marietta, Georgia, which is close to both of us.
Yep.
And we're going to be running through an all-day Blood and Plunder, I guess you want to call it Games Day / extravaganza. So people could jump in and jump out at any point, and somebody else can come in and keep playing in the battle, right wherever someone else left off. We're going to be doing it during a War Machine tournament that's there going on that day as well. So if people are done with the rounds early, they can jump into the game and play. And while they're waiting on pairings for the next round, they can jump back out, play War Machine, and then jump back into Blood and Plunder. And, we kind of have a couple of cool ideas that we're kicking around. And I think the big one that we kind of settled on is kind of a Battlefield-esque style of play is what we're feeling, where it's like there's unlimited reinforcement. So for 4 hours, you're just trying to score as many objectives as possible and kill as many of, the French or the Spanish or, the English of whichever side you're on as possible.
Yeah. So, we talked about that, and what it's going to be is it is going to be a 6-foot by 12-foot board. And
yes, it's going to be massive.
Those of you who have heard us talk about Blood and Plunder know that, Tim and I both are extremely enthusiastic about Blood and Plunder, and playing the game. And so one of the big things that we're bringing in is the fact that, we're going to have sea battles and, everything. You'll be able to launch from boats to land on the shore to try and capture spots. And as Tim alluded to, we were talking about, some Battlefield-esque type of deployment areas, which means that, at certain key locations, if you capture that and somebody else comes up to play, that's where they start from and, go from there. And, so I plan on getting as much of the mechanics of Blood and Plunder into this game.
Yes.
And just so that we can play. It's going to be just one massive game for everyone around. And, I think it's going to be just amazing fun. We've already done games. I've been running local demos and all that where there's 6 to 8 of us playing. And that's on, 1, maybe 2 battle mats. The last one I kind of did was on a 4x8. Laying out a couple of my battle mats, and it's been a ball so far. Having a lot of players, especially lower points. It took a little bit to work out because of the card mechanic on activations, but once we kind of came to a semblance of I kind of like how this works. It's just been super smooth. So. Speaking of which, if you're in the Atlanta area, we've been organizing mostly to play on Wednesday night, or not Wednesday nights. We record on Wednesday nights. We've been working on playing on Friday nights. Man, I can't think of things today.
That's fine. So over at Gigabytes, Friday nights it does a couple things. There's the 40K Friday night fights, which are like narrative 40K games. And then on top of that, they're also trying to make that the official, unofficial, historical gaming night, I guess is the good way to put it. Because they got some Muskets and Tomahawks players. They've got, obviously, Blood and Plunder. What else are they doing? They're doing Saga and Bolt Action, is it?
I don't know if I've actually seen anyone playing Bolt Action lately. I know Thursday nights they have... what is it, War Wings or Wings of War? The plane fighting game. Wings of Glory?
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think that's it. They have that, and I would like to make it out for one of those. Just because it does seem like it would be fun to play. I haven't played it yet. But really, they just are encouraging gamers to come out on Friday nights. Especially, there's usually room now. With the expansion, there's even a little bit more. They are throwing up, some smaller tables in the evenings and whatnot, as needed. So, there's a lot of room. I like it. It's been nice because we've usually been able to snag a spot, and we don't usually have any problems with the 40K crowd. It just ends up not being crowded, I guess is
right.
better term for it than problems with them. It's just not being crowded.
Right. I like to use the term problems, but that's besides the point. No, but ultimately, no, the 40K crowd they have done there is actually really awesome. I don't know about anybody else's typical findings especially if you're doing smaller indie games, but usually 40K, when it takes up room, it really takes up room. So sometimes getting demos can be a bit of a pain in the ass, but they've been really good about it. So, kudos to them for that. Let's see here. Yeah. So that's going to be our next big event is that's Saturday, August 26th. And that's going to be, what is it running from 11 to 4 Eastern time?
Yeah, it's going to be running from 11 to 4. I'm going to, hopefully I can get in there early enough to, get everything set up so that we can really start playing at 4. If you have your own stuff, you are more than welcome to bring it along with you. Yeah, at 11. That's what I said. I said it. I just want. What? Why are you fucking with me?
He said 4. That's fine.
My brain's already running slow enough tonight. Why are you doing this to me, Tim?
Not enough beer. So we're going to be doing that 11 to 4. So it'll be a 5-hour stream. Maybe we'll set up the stream a little bit early so you can watch us fucking off as we're getting it all set up and just throwing models around the table a little bit. But yeah, if you have your own models, definitely bring them. If you don't have model, that's going to be totally fine. I'm going to have every single one of my models at that point should be painted and ready to go. Nick's got more than enough models. Does the store have any demo units or no?
I can talk to David, the owner. He has Sean Tweedy's been painting up his French. I think he's done with the starter box for it, so I can ask him if those will be available, but he may say no because he'll be there using them too.
Perfect. Awesome. So
we'll see.
But either way, there will be models for you to use. And then if you decide to play and you're like, hey, I really dig this and I want to keep playing with you guys today, you decide to pick up a starter force and whatnot, definitely do that. Jump right into the game. The awesome thing with the way that Blood and Plunder plays, because all the bases are fixed right to the bottom, I actually kind of found my own little hack, if you want to call it that, because, obviously there's not a lot of models out for the game right now. So, my filibustiers model-wise, they're the exact same as your filibustiers. So you could just write on the bottom of yours your initials with a magic marker and you're good. So, at the end, there's no dispute over whose unpainted filibustiers you've just picked up.
Definitely advisable if you're going to bring your own stuff. Do a little something to make them stand out so that you know whose they are. In some way, shape, or form.
Right. So we all of my stuff at that point, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, but I'm moving along really really well right now on it. Should be painted. So everything I bring should be painted for everybody to use. So we should be good on that spot as far as having the visual spectacle, if you would.
Definitely.
Past that, we got some terrain that we're going to be building for it as well. Kirk over at Miniature Building Authority, he actually dropped off some of his, temporarily, we're going to say that, discontinued Spanish maiden terrain. So it hasn't been in print for 3 years, but he's looking at bringing it back in because there's been a massive demand for it lately. And if you haven't seen the Spanish main terrain by Miniature Building Authority, definitely recommend you check it out on their website.
You should place it on one of your islands or something, or bring it Friday night and we can take some pictures of it on my board so that we can really show it off, because I'm really in love with this terrain. Actually, pretty much anything Miniature Building Authority has out, I'm in love with.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't seen anything by Miniature Building Authority, definitely go check them out. Most of their stuff is pre-painted. You always have the option of buying unpainted or pre-painted. They have a lot of fantastic stuff on the market. A lot of people always say, oh, well, it's really pricey. Well, let me tell you guys this, just because of the fact that I've handled it in person. I've got sets here. I know Nick's seen it in person. If you've been to a con and seen it in person, yes, it is resin. Yes, it is pre-painted. It's pre-painted, better than what most people do with their terrain. And it, for being resin, it's actually really, really durable. You would have to actively be hit by a car to have this stuff break. You really have to be abusing your stuff to have anything by MBA break. So fantastic stuff. Right out of the box, ready to go. It's a little bit more on the pricey side compared to, your typical let's assemble some MDF kits. Well worth it in my book.
Yeah, and especially right now, being in something of, well, it's not even crunch time yet, but, I have 25 days. I've got roughly 120 figures to get painted and, all that, and still some terrain, some forests, some shoals. I've got 2 boats to paint. Oh, actually,
I've got some cannons to paint.
Oh man, I even forgot about my cannons. I got all my cannons to paint, and I'm planning on making it so that there's enough so that it's you can even use some on the board, and not just on the ships.
Oh, my Sea Dog's gonna be lugging a cannon with them on land.
Do you have a gun carriage? I don't think so. You can't do it. Nah.
Says you. I've got a gun carriage.
No, you don't. Shut up. Gun carriages aren't allowed. They all burned down before the scenario happened.
So that's one of the other cool things about Blood and Plunder. Cannons are not just limited to being on decks of ships and fortresses. If you have an artillery crew, they can actually take a cannon on a gun carriage with them onto land and lug it around with them across the board, which is hilarious, by the way.
Well, it has to start out on land because otherwise it's on a naval carriage.
Yeah, exactly. It has to start out on land. You can't take it off of your boat onto land. So when you buy it, you're buying it for a land troop. But yeah. I plan on doing that because it's gonna be funny.
Sorry, that was totally neck-bearding nerdiness, but
yeah,
I had to ruin some of your fun.
Well, I mean, let's face it. Mike and Chris over at Firelock already just basically denied us, for the most part, what we wanted. Well, not entirely. So for those of you that haven't been following along on the Blood and Plunder page, the April Fool's joke of this year, and you've heard us talk about it a few times, was they came out with a model called a monkey with a blunderbuss. Blunderbuss, they made this card thinking, nobody actually has a model of a monkey with a blunderbuss. Little did they know that Patrick Keith from Bombshell Miniatures made a monkey with a blunderbuss. Nick went ahead and posted his online. Patrick had, I don't know, what was it, like 25 sales for a monkey with a blunderbuss overnight?
Basically, yeah.
And since then, like, the joke on the website has been the blunder monkey, and a lot of people have been getting behind it and really liking the idea. And it's kind of been like our, I guess you want to call it our running mascot for Blood and Plunder is the blunder monkey. So
they did play a game. Blunder monkey's there.
So they decided that what they were going to do is they were actually going to make the final stretch goal in the Kickstarter a statue of the Blunder Monkey. Now, they weren't going to make it the playable model because, again, it is a historical game. So, yes, the Blunder Monkey, is an April Fool's joke. It's a funsy card. It will not be allowed in tournaments. It will not be allowed in any type of a sanctioned event. It's just going to be there for, like, fun events or something crazy thing you want to run at your house or at your local game club or something like that. It will never be an official. It'll never be an official thing. However, the fact that they decided that they were going to make the final stretch goal the statue of the monkey with the blunderbuss, and they put it out there far enough, because I know what they were doing is they were looking at their kick track metrics and saying, okay, if we put it at, I forgot what it was. Was it like 220,000 or something like that? I don't remember.
Yeah, 215, 220, something like that. Just far enough away that,
Right.
It was going to be a stretch.
Close. It would get close, but it would still be off by like $10,000. So little did they know that the moment that they put this up there, they're like, "Oh yeah, we highly doubt we're going to hit this." Nick and I were like, "Challenge accepted." So we started plugging this thing all over with the help of Neil Amswitch. We can't leave him out of this. He was an absolute champion on getting this thing to happen too. And within a matter of 48 hours.
basically
the Blunder Monkey funded and went over its funding by almost $8,000. So yes, we are all. If anyone backed the Kickstarter is getting the monkey with a blunderbuss, you're welcome, America, and the rest of the world. So,
goddamn right, monkey.
Yeah.
With a
So,
oh man.
So yeah, we've got a lot of that going on. But again, it's all in good fun.
It is. It's been a lot of fun, and there's sadly enough, there's been a few members of the community who get tired of Blunder Monkey, and it hurts in the heart because it's fun, it's just, and that's all it's meant to be. It's never meant to, really detract from the game or anything like that, because I have a deep love for the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody was asking me, somebody I was running a demo, and they're like, "Why do you like this game?" And I went, I don't know. I've played a lot of games so far. I can't recall actually winning any of them yet, but I have had fun every time I've played. I'm like, and that about summarizes it. It's been such a nice rule set, and it's just been fun. Even though it's a historical game, I would say that the biggest thing is that there's never been anything that I would call a shenanigan that's happened.
No. And if it feels like the first time you read the rule book and you go, oh, okay, fine. And then it goes on from there. And again, a lot of it, because it's rooted in history, there's no such thing as, oh, well, these pirates went onto the field with M16s, that's a shenanigan. There's none of that in the game. So, if anything, it's like maybe these troopers are better in melee combat than these guys. Nick learned the hard way a few times that buccaneers are great shots, but they do not like sharp, pointy objects in their face.
They do not. But, actually, the interesting part is there's a lot of units that, don't like sharp, pointy objects in their face. They like putting sharp, pointy objects in other people's face. Buccaneers don't like doing that either.
No, they're like, no, we've got a gun. That's it. Leave us alone.
God made black powder for a reason.
Exactly. That's exactly how they look at it. That's how they stick to it. But I am looking forward to the fact that now that the Engages are out, of making a full-on logwood cutters force. And the first game we play, I'm going to roll until I roll that 5. And my whole army is going to start that game drunk.
Oh man. The Engages aren't those the Buccaneers manservants or whatever?
Yeah. So for those listening, I know we're just kind of babbling some shit out there, but the way that this works is that for those who actually use the English militia models, but they have totally different stats. So they're basically like the Buccaneers servants that happen to learn some of the battle tactics from the Buccaneers themselves. And so it's like, yeah, they're not even close to as good as the Buccaneers, but it's still a person that can pick up a gun and go to town.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of the important part. They're only 3 points apiece. Buccaneers is 7. So that right there ought to tell you everything you need to know. Even your, I guess if you want to call it, your typical line troop in the game is worth 4 points. So, Engages being 3 points apiece, they're like, they're there to throw as much, lead shot as far as possible in a large volley and hopefully kill a model or two.
Yes. And yeah, they can be, well, I would say that they, have the potential of being possible of doing that. They don't like seeing things die though. They've got the timid rule, and then they've also got Buccaneer servants, something like that, which means that you can only bring one for each Buccaneer you bring. Which is definitely interesting, so that you can't try and game it and bring this huge mass of guys that can shoot.
Right, exactly. Because after a while you're gonna start rolling 10s, and there's nothing that your opponent can do about that. So yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I'm really excited to run that. I just like the idea of the logwood cutters being able to start a game drunk, so they don't shoot as well, but their fight gets better. So, and then you've got like, these smarmy bastards like the filibustiers that like, that's probably the one unit in the game that I've found so far that are like, okay, our primary job is to shoot you, but we'll go toe to toe if we need to. And like, they don't even care. So,
you know what? I would actually have to argue that the filibustier, their primary job isn't to shoot you. Their primary job is to cut you because they are a lot better at or not a lot, but
they're equal in close combat than they are to shooting.
They're a 5 in close combat. They're a 6 in shooting.
Wow, even better.
Yeah,
so, they like to tango, but at the same time though, they like their shoot skill is no slouch either. So that's always a good thing.
Right. So, a 6 in a D10 game, a 6 is not a bad thing.
Right. So when they're drunk, they just go to a 4 and fight and a 7 and shoot. Hand-eye coordination's not there, but guess what? They're much braver than they were before.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That I would be scared of filibustiers and logwood cutters.
Well, only if they're drunk. Otherwise, past that, they're just fine. So, yeah, that's so there's a lot of cool stuff. They just launched the I forget what they're calling it. It's not even really they just launched the FAQ for those that need a little bit of clarity on some of the things that were discussed in the rule book. But on top of that, just their additional factions, I think is all they called the document.
Yeah, I think something like that. It's just a supplement. So one of the funny parts, or one of the funny things is that the milicians, or not milicians, the Carib de Militia, or Militia de Caribs, des Caribs, yeah. The French militia is basically what it is. They didn't have an entry in, or they had an entry on the little card that comes in the box set that you get, the starter box. And they have a special rule called plug bayonet. But nowhere in the book does it explain what plug bayonet special rule is, other than you understand that it's a plug bayonet. You have a bayonet that you would plug into the end of your rifle, and so
turn it into a spear.
Right, to turn it into a gun with a a spear. And so the question came up the other day in a game, and they released the FAQ like an hour after I got done playing, which explains it because I sat there looking in the book and I realized afterwards that I was thinking of the game Pikeman's Lament, which takes place in the same era, so it has people that have plug bayonets, and it's a standard action to plug it and unplug it. Well, in this rule book, it's a free action, so you can do it, and it doesn't actually take one of your activations away to plug or unplug it.
Right. So it's a little bit nastier in Blood and Plunder as far as that goes.
Right. Definitely. But there's only currently one unit that can take advantage of that. And have, a sharp pointy object. And they're militia. They aren't the greatest unit, but when you need numbers, because numbers can, like Tim said earlier, numbers, and dice, when you're shooting, especially, they add up.
Yeah, they do. They add up quickly. So, yeah, the Blood and Plunder thing, we got a lot of stuff going on with that this month. It's pretty much going to be 100% dedicated to Blood and Plunder this month, between building terrain, getting our models painted, everything else. So we're going to be having a big shebang on that on August 26th. So definitely tune in. If you listen to this, tune in. We'll be making some Facebook posts and Instagram posts and everything else along that aspect to lead up to it. And the other thing that we're going to be covering as soon as it comes in, and I actually just found out today that it is on the way and should be here this week, is our advanced copy of Osprey Games' Dracula's America.
Woo-hoo.
So excited for this one.
I would actually say, this one kind of was sneaking in on me. I've paid a little bit of attention to it, but I haven't paid a whole lot. And then you were like, hey, we should have this coming here soon. And I was like, oh yeah, there was I think a Nick starter going on about that, wasn't there? So So this one's kind of taking me by surprise. I mean, like I had kind of seen some stuff, heard some stuff, whatever, but at spending some time looking into it, reading up on it, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So for those of you that haven't looked at it yet, it's actually up on the Osprey Games website. But it is basically the Old West, either right around the time of the Civil War or right after the Civil War, somewhere within that time frame.
It's post Civil War because
it's post Civil War.
Yeah, I mean, because because of the factions in it. It seems to indicate it, at least. It's Transcontinental Railroad time frame.
Right. So keep in mind that at this point, the big twist to it is obviously the North still won, the South lost, but there's supernatural abilities, and Dracula is the lifetime president of the United States in perpetuity. And the reason it's listed that way is we all know Dracula doesn't age. So unless somebody kills him, he's president forever. And so there's a couple factions of the game that are obviously trying to stop that. There's one faction that's all about that. There's a couple other factions that are kind of like, we somewhat care, but we got our own things going on. And then there's other factions that are just trying to, for lack of better terms, they're just going to do their own thing. So the factions that break down in that is actually pretty cool. So you got the Twilight Order, which are basically old world monster hunters that have made their way to the United States. And so you've got this cross of, I guess if you want to call it, Knights Templar monster hunters. So you have like dudes decked out in full plate armor with great swords and silver weapons. And then you've got like cowboys with some metal, like banded mail or full plate armor, breastplates and whatnot. And they're using guns instead of swords. So you kind of have like knights marching right alongside armored cowboys. So their big thing is they're good at hunting monsters. So anything supernatural in the game, they're going to be slightly better at taking down than most. Then the next one is the Red Hand Coven, which basically is the force of Dracula. This is your vampire force. So the cool way that the game works is that you can't just load up on monsters because it is still a Western game. It's still a Wild West game with typical people running around. So like your cowboy posse or your outlaw posse is still normal people. The bulk of your force is still normal people. So you usually only get like 2, maybe 3 special characters. One of those is usually an arcanist of some form, which is a magic user. Each faction has its own different kinds of magic that it uses and different ways that magic plays. Red Hand Coven, you get 2 vampires, and then you get forget exactly what they call their version of an arcanist, but really they're kind of like this sort of pseudo half vampire, not quite more magic than anything else, not quite human. And then the rest of them are like regular cowboys that just happen to be serving Dracula. You have the Congregation, which are escaped slaves living in the swamps that have really mastered the art of voodoo. And so they're really good at making your traditional zombies and using the power of voodoo in order to allow spirits into one of their models. They can actually make the Vessel, which is basically a really powerful voodoo spirit that takes over the body of an individual that can go rampaging across the battlefield. So they have a lot of cool voodoo magic. The opposite of them is actually the Dark Confederacy, which took all of this stuff dealing with the Confederacy, led by, want to say his name is Jebediah Crane. I could be wrong on that. We'll have to look at, if you look it up on the website, you can see it, but the guy's batshit crazy. And he basically learned how to use voodoo and turned it into, instead of just being like dealing with magic with the dead and spirits, straight up necromancy. So just bastardize everything that the Congregation does. So those two don't get along.
Yeah.
And then you have why am I forgetting the name of them? The Crossroads Covenant, which are basically demon worshippers. So these are like a bunch of rich assholes that own the Transcontinental Railway that also happen to be like just demon worshippers that are like, oh yeah, whatever, we're rich enough, we'll make our own form of the Hellfire Club and do what we want. And then of course I saved the best for last, because this is always going to be my favorite, is the Skinwalkers, which are the Native Americans that are really sick and tired of, both the supernatural and mankind alike ravaging their lands and destroying it. And so they started tapping into their inner spirits along with their shamans, which are their version of the Arcanist. And you can actually take Skinwalkers. So the Skinwalkers themselves, outside of your posse of regular Indians, which again, for all intents and purposes are, outside of like just model range, absolutely no different than, Nick's cowboy posse. I could take pistols, shotguns, rifles, in my case, bow and arrows, but I also have access to Skinwalkers, which I can only take 2 of, and I can either choose wolf form or bear form, which basically, during the game, these models can shape change from their typical human form into full on, I'm going to rip your face off, werebear or werewolf. And they do lots and lots and lots of damage in melee combat. So if you want the melee heavy force, Skinwalkers are definitely the way you want to go.
Yeah. So it was kind of funny because the day before, or probably sometime this weekend, Tim mentioned that this was coming the other day. And sometime this weekend, I had, kind of noticed it, kind of looked through the Nick starter, noted the factions, saw the Skinwalkers, kind of went, hey, I kind of like that faction. Well, then Tim announced, oh, hey, it's on its way. We're going to get some advanced copies to, check out, get some gameplay videos in. And I was like, oh, cool. And he, his next line is, and Skinwalkers are mine. And I'm like, God damn it.
So to be fair though, like I didn't get a chance to back the Nick starter. Their models are amazing, but I have not played Wild West Exodus in a long time. And when I first got into that game, I got in with the Warrior Nation, which are just that. They're shape-changing Native Americans. So I have got the big, giant Geronimo werebear. Well, his name is Geronimo. Sitting Bull in 2 of his forms in the werewolf form. And then I've, of course, got the Braves, which come with either close combat weapons such as tomahawks and pistols, and the long-range ones, which are bows and rifles. So I already have, like, the entirety of my force that I need for Dracula's America just from having Wild West Exodus. So in a way, I guess if you want to say it's cheating, sure, we'll go with that. My Arcanist is going to be, if for those of you that follow Wild West Exodus, is Walks Looking, who is she's a blind shaman. So I'll be using her as my Arcanist. And then the only model I'm trying to find right now, and I found a couple cool ones online that I'm looking at converting, is a Wendigo, because the big nasty, not that the werebears and werewolves aren't nasty, but they go one step nastier and actually can summon a flesh-hungry Wendigo into existence on the battlefield. So finding a model that is suitable enough for a Wendigo has been kind of a challenge, to say the least, because a Wendigo under your traditional look and feel is actually close to like 10 to 14 feet tall, gaunt, very skinny, and it's kind of like this cross between like a cannibalistic deer and a human. So it can stand up on its hind legs. It has like long fingernail hands, looks gaunt and skinny because of the fact that it's eternally hungry, and has like the head of a deer with the antlers. So trying to find a model that kind of has that long, lean feel and is really nasty has been something I've been looking into. So Nick actually pointed out the Arena Rex Wendigo, which is very much that Native American in style. The only problem that is that model's very beautiful, and it's very thin and very resin, and I want it to be something that I can carry with me and not worry about being ruined on the table. I love that model by Arena Rex, but to be completely honest with you folks, if I ever painted it, it would never leave my house.
So one other option might be that I just thought of, and it may not, but the Rengifer from Frostgrave.
Oh, I'll have to look at those. I totally forgot about them. You were right.
Yeah, I just thought of it when you mentioned deer antlers. I'm like, there's something else out there that has that.
Yes, so
they might be a little too deer-like, but
as long as I can paint them to look dead, because that's the thing. The Wendigo is like, it's kind of like it's an evil spirit that devours the flesh of living things. So, and it looks dead. So yeah, I mean, creepy paint job and some blood splattered here and there, it'll work.
Yeah, no, so, I think you should be able to accomplish that.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, my Dracula's America posse is set. Now, one of the cool things I do want to point out is that outside of maybe the Congregation, if you decided to try to find certain models that look like escaped slaves, because again, this is a period piece, so you're going to have that. Every faction of the game outside of the Skinwalkers and the Congregation can use the same stock. So your cowboy posse can switch between factions. So like your core group of models is just that. It's your core group of models. And then let's say one day you're playing Twilight Order, next day you want to play Dark Congregation. You swap out, the Templar and the Seraphim and the Arcanist, because again, your Arcanist should always look like whatever faction you're going to. You swap out really those four models. One of them is a summon, so you may or may not have it based upon how you play the game. To the Dark Confederacy, where you just change up what kind of special models you're bringing into it. So in that case, you bring in a couple of Necromancers and an extra Arcanist, and you're good. And then you get some zombies, and that's your army. So you keep your core posse of cowboys, end up picking up even banditos, and you're good. You're solid. You just need to buy the extra special ones, and you can swap between. In that point, what is it? 4 of the 6 factions or 7 factions? Basically,
yeah.
So it's really cool in that way. Very flexible, which is something that the older I get, and especially wife and I are going to be adopting kids. I don't have time for a ton of models left and right everywhere. So the less models I need to pick up, the better. The more I can repurpose models I already have to new games or to extend gameplay, the better for me. So, and that's something I really appreciate.
Yeah. I definitely second that. Not because I think you can ever have too many models, but because I've got kids and I've got a job, and it seems like I never have time to paint anymore. So, it goes back and forth, and obviously there's a whole lot of time going to be sunk into painting in the next couple weeks, but it seems like few and far between. And yeah, launching into whole new projects, if I can't repurpose it, it's easy to sideline that one. I'll get to you later. You are when I have the free time game.
Yeah.
That would be why I have a box full of Arena Rex Zephyri models that I keep looking at going, oh God, you're so beautiful and I want to paint you, but I don't have time to paint just you. I can't use you anywhere else.
That is true. Wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
Well, I mean, I think we pretty much covered it. Like, we're trying to stick to the schedule. So far, we've been decent about it, sticking to the schedule of either live streaming or recording and editing one battle report or new gameplay per month. I know right now, currently, we have zero plans to go above and beyond that because, again, both of us are very busy. Nick has kids. I don't have kids yet, but we're planning on it very soon. So, obviously that cuts into a lot of our free time, especially when we both have like 40-hour a week day jobs and we do this thing on a Wednesday night later on at night, so it changes the way that things operate for us. So,
and we actually we're both an hour away from the other. So, that also puts a damper on, it becomes a production to meet up with the other to get those games in.
Right. Because any of you that are familiar with Atlanta, you'll know that the traffic sucks.
Yeah. We're really only like 20 miles from each other, but
yeah,
man, I have never seen 20 miles take so long.
So cool. But yeah, I think so that's pretty much what we got planned for the next couple of months is, really the big thing is getting the Scrappers video finished, the Blood and Plunder live stream, and then looks like September we're probably going to be doing the Dracula's America. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah. In there, I also, because I actually have them on display, or most of them, Pikeman's Lament I want to get in as well.
Yeah, we got to sneak that in as well.
That also does happen to be another Osprey title. But the interesting part there is I've really been enjoying historicals, and I think Kings of War burnt me a little bit on the whole Magic fantasy thing. Kings of War, and then turning around and then playing Warzone Resurrection. I've heard that the newest update is really excellent in bringing back or forcing some of the balance into it, but I'm awful hesitant to try and pick that one back up. Both systems seem Magic and Psychic powers just a little too off for me in both of those, and it's a terrible thing. Like Kings of War, I would also say that the tournament devoted crowd is the other thing that turned me off. Not that anyone who goes out to play tournaments is a bad thing or anything like that. It wasn't my cup of tea for that game. Warzone Resurrection, it was the imbalances, like I just said. So, historicals, even, the stuff in Scrappers and there's Blood and Plunder and, other games, so far, where it's much less powerful.
I was going to say fuckery.
Well, sure, but the fuckery comes around because the skills that I'm referencing just feel overpowered. There's too much given to them.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that one. Especially from Warzone Resurrection, coming at it from a Dark Legion player. Like as a Dark Legion player, okay, as somebody that likes tournaments, I am telling you, Dark Legion are broken as shit. So,
well, and and I don't know. I don't know if you've had a chance to sit down and look at the 2.2 update or whatever. John Caspian, the social director over at Gigabytes, he did some live streams on it, and I've talked to him a little bit because he is trying to drag me back into it. And, he said that they've fixed a lot of the points that I've made about the game that were lacking.
Well, let's hope so, because I know that that was one of the big issues that we had, because even after that tournament that we ran, and I know it sounds like we're shitting all over Warzone. We're really not. I've always loved the universe, but we played a tournament and we pulled up like some of the European nationals, and the guys that won that. And it was funny because after that tournament was done, I took a look at my list, which I did not pay attention to any of that. I am not a net list guy. I never have been. I never will be. So I had no idea that this list existed, but I looked at first place, I looked at second place, I looked at third place, and they were all Dark Legion, all Valpurgius, and their lists were almost exactly what mine were, give or take a couple model selections here or there for flavor.
Yep.
So that right there, usually from a game design standpoint, is a solid indicator that they're like, when that becomes an auto include, when something becomes an auto include in a game, and I've mentioned this before, when something becomes an auto include, it's time to look at it and say, okay, maybe this needs to be adjusted.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on that.
Definitely. Especially when it's, everyone all the way around that, automatically has to include that in their list.
Right.
And yeah, the game can be fun. The other thing that's bothering me, and I don't think they did fix in this, is Bauhaus. Bauhaus, the one army that has no shit actual unit called artillery. And they don't have anyone that has a forward observer. Whereas the other armies seem to all have someone that's a forward fucking observer. And only one of them, well, I think 2 of them, but one of them has a unit that can convert itself into a mortar.
Yes.
But
and
then
it doesn't suffer any penalties.
The people with goddamn damn art. Yeah, it made me very, very, very upset when I realized that there were lists that had it. And for those of you not familiar with the game, having Forward Observer, is much like what it sounds like. They man a radio and they say, hey, you got to turn this way or turn that way, and, you're right on target. And it removes a lot of the negatives of firing indirect fire. Because otherwise you have to expose your units and put them out front so that they can see it. Hell, the Bajas even have a special character that's an artillery commander that's supposed to be able to give them, some cool buffs or whatever. And even he doesn't have Forward Observer, so you put him out in harm's way to look at something, and he can direct the fire there.
Right.
No. Oh, that made me very, very, very frustrated, if you guys couldn't tell.
The salt is real. So
the salt is extremely real.
Nick, is there anything else we want to cover before we go? I think we've actually covered kind of what we're going to be having coming up here in the next few months. Anything else you want to throw out there?
Yeah, so about the or one of the other things out there is Gigabytes has started Giga TV, and they did reach out to Tim and I and asked Tim and I if we would be willing to come on and do a show, do a segment, and tentatively so far I have agreed. Tim's agreed, in part. More his availability. I'm only 20 to 30 minutes from Gigabytes. Tim's an hour, easy.
Sometimes longer, depending on traffic.
Depending on traffic, sometimes longer. So look for that. Actually, we may be kicking it off this Friday. And actually, Tim will be there. We'll be trying to get in some Blood and Plunder to stir up more people for the games day. So that will be happening soon. I was going to say something about Patreon. I mean, other than, we have a Patreon. It's, patreon.com/Skirmish Supremacy podcast. But in addition to that, Tim and I have been considering going to a slightly different model. Instead of flat fees, we were considering doing just a donate how much you would like per episode, and that'll include some of the extra content as well. And that's right. Something you can easily put a cap on. We haven't quite worked out all of the details. We're just talking about it, but we would like to get your feedback. What do you want to see from us to put in? One of the things we're looking at doing, we will still do the early releases for patrons, but anything that we've considered or talked about doing patron only, we're thinking about just doing away with at the moment, or altogether, because like we said before, we're busy and trying to manage and remember what's going to be patron only and what's not, and all that is just it's a little bit more than we want to do. So, right. Or can do. I shouldn't even say want to do, but can do. So we're looking at doing away with that and just making it easier. Your donations, they help us with things like hosting our website, which needs a massive revamp. If any of you are feeling generous and want to help us work on the webpage, that would be awesome. That's one of the primary places Robin's going to live, because he's going to be posting stuff for us. Following that, there was something else. I dropped it. Gosh darn it. Whole list of little things that we've been talking about and we want to jump on or move forward with, but we would like to hear from you on what are we doing. Oh, I know the other thing. The best news is we have booked our rooms for Adepticon 2018.
Woo-hoo. Yes,
Woohoo!
we will be. We will be there. So we're getting everything set up for that now. We're not sure exactly what we'll be participating in, but we are kind of discussing that. And obviously, it's still a little too soon as far as a lot of the companies go. But we're going to start talking with them now to kind of see what's going on, what they have planned, so we can kind of, I don't want to say piggyback on them, but we can kind of work with them in order to get some extra stuff done.
Yeah, I mean, last year being our first year, this time around, I won't forget my battery chargers. Um, I've especially with filming and moving back and forth between Tim and I's house, I've started trying to develop a checklist of stuff I'm taking. Though I won't be taking nearly as much stuff as I do to Tim's house, there will still be a decent amount of stuff that'll be going. So we'll be filming, games, demos, and all that. So anyone who's listening that will be showcasing at Adepticon, get a hold of us now. That way we can
Yeah, we want to make sure we set aside the time.
Exactly. We want to start developing our list for you guys, to set aside the time, because and we know that there's a lot of them out there, a lot of our listeners, or not even a lot, but several of our listeners are also, have been our guests or have told other people about us, and those people have been our guests, or any number of things. So, we definitely want to, do all that stuff. We will be setting up a Skirmish Supremacy, hangout, eat night, a lot like we did last year. That was a lot of fun. We had, I mean, there was a whole, I forget even then how many people we ended up having, like 20.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Something like that, and there was a whole lot of impromptu. Actually, a huge shout out to Benson Green. Thank you for helping to, organize that. I know I've done that a couple times already, but he, we had the ideas in our head, but he has just experience pulling those things off. And when, we explained kind of what we were running into as the problem and whatnot, he took it and ran with it and, helped us have a great night with, all the different people that we met, just in our first year. And now that we're year 2, we've met so many more, and there's so many more people we can't wait to see. So, we're massively looking forward to all that stuff. So,
absolutely,
yeah, give us a shout out. We did joke for the longest time that people, we had listeners. We can now even see that you download our stuff.
Yeah,
but
metrics
never would comment, and actually for the first almost year, it really did suck because we had no analytics. There was nothing that told us what was going on, and we're like, I don't even know if there's anyone that listens to us. We finally moved over to a host that gives us those metrics and numbers. So now we can see that you're downloading. You're busted. Stop hiding. Come on out and tell us that we're a bunch of assholes.
That's the important part.
But it's kind of funny because slowly, every now and again, I go to make that joke and I'm like, oh, but there are these people that all of a sudden they pop up. Every now and again, there's someone who says something, and it's like, damn it, they actually listen to the show.
That's true.
Well,
folks,
right.
I think we've. I was going to say, I think we've pretty much covered everything that we were going to cover for tonight. And we've gone over a little bit on time, but that's fine. That's just extra content for you guys. So that's going to wrap up this episode of Skirmish Supremacy, episode 81. Again, crazy. And we will talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to another episode of Skirmish Supremacy. To see more of the antics that Nick and I do, you can check us out on Facebook at Skirmish Supremacy. We also have Twitter, which we can be reached at Skirmish Supreme, because apparently Skirmish Supremacy does not fit in Twitter. And if you want to email us directly, you can reach us at tim@skirmishsupremacy.com or nick@skirmishsupremacy.com. Thanks for listening.